Hello everyone, welcome to MediaNama. In July this year, a group of 70 gaming companies sent a representation to the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting and the Prime Minister's office seeking that the term online gaming should be split into two categories, video games and real money games. They believe that this will address the nuances of the gaming industry and ensure fairness. The lack of differentiation between the two categories led to confusion when the GST amendment came about, leading to online gaming being included in both the 18% and the 28% GST brackets. To understand the rationale behind splitting online gaming into video games and real money games, we have with us Roby John, the CEO of SuperGaming. Hi, Robbie. Could you talk me through what falls within the definition of video games as per the industry representation sent to MIT, like with some examples?
Got it. So I think the clear distinction from our perspective has been a video game is a digital game that we play for entertainment. It's for leisure, learning, where you kind of play with the content, character, objects in this virtual world. You play through environments, worlds. You've seen the world of Indus, which is an Indo-futuristic universe. You have challenges, storylines, missions. And generally, you'll find these distributed through, obviously everything is now online, but earlier you found this on DVDs, you found this on cartridges inside of your NES controllers, you see this on a PS5 station. Video games, they can be paid, they can contain, they might be free to play, they might have in-game purchases, but they don't have the means to stake money to win more money or prizes or lose the staked money. That's all. That's what I think is the difference between a video game and a real money game. Now, when we think about a real money game, is a game, I mean, a typical casino game, rummy, poker would kind of be that equivalent, where people stake money to enter a contest. They play with the potential of winning more money or prizes, and they could stand to lose the money that they kind of initially staked. This is what you played inside of casinos in the physical form, but you also played a card game equivalent like rummy, poker, or you've also kind of seen this in fantasy sports. And that's kind of the part that we've kind of seen the distinction between video games and real money games. So one is for stakes for money, that you stake money and then you kind of play. The other one is for entertainment, leisure, or learning.
Understood. So I was looking at some UK regulations around gaming, and apparently a while back it had a consultation about loot boxes. So just for context, these can be purchased via in-game currency, and users typically don't know what they'd end up getting in a loot box until after they purchase. So they were talking about this and comparing it to like as being as addictive as gambling, because the users would keep buying more because they don't know what they're going to get. So I'm just like trying to understand from you whether this should fall within the scope of video games that you've talked about, or what should be the regulation for it.
So I think loot boxes or in-game chance items are a mechanic that you'll see in every game. What has happened is there's a very defined regulation around it as well, in which you have to disclose the chance of you getting that item right there. Both online platform, all the online platforms, they require you to kind of do that depending on the country that it's regulated in. There is a level of distinction that's there inside of it, and that's kind of clearly identified as an in-game purchase with loot boxes, which have a chance of doing it. That's really the key part. But some of these loot boxes, etc., can also be purchased with not real money but in-game currency. An in-game currency need not be purchased; it could be acquired through just playing the game.
Right. So they should ideally fall within the definition of video games.
Loot boxes, I don't know. Like, I would say that loot boxes are a mechanic within a video game. Like, the video game industry doesn't mean loot boxes.
Right. Yeah. Got it. I understand that because I was looking at the representation that was sent, I understand that the industry wants to steer clear of hard regulations. So, just wanted to get a sense of what potential regulations.
What is the meaning of hard? I want to ask a clarifying question. What is the meaning of hard regulations here?
So I meant things like there was talk about not wanting to limit time spent in gaming and so on. So I wanted to understand what sort of regulations the industry is concerned about within this category.
I don't know whether the document actually talks a little bit about it, whether it kind of talks about any of the pieces from a hard, like the specific term that you kind of use, hard regulations.
Right, but so I read that Tamil Nadu is considering curbing the time people spend in gaming, and that is one of the things that the representation did talk about. So basically saying that there is one current need for spend limiting time that people spend gaming. So just wanted to understand your perspective on such policies, and if such policies are necessary to like sort of curb gaming addiction. Are there any alternatives to having such a regulation in place?
So I think regulation is obviously a purview of the state. From our perspective, there's obviously, video games themselves are kind of marketed or sold from a perspective of saying that, hey, this is really something that, we expect, or we don't really see that, the need for hard regulation. If that's kind of what your question is that kind of what your question is, that is there a need for regulation? Because I'm not seeing it in the document anywhere. Is there something that you're referring to that's outside the document?
No. This is so I'm referring to something outside the document, yes, but the document pointed to China's time limits on game and said that this is an anomaly and that currently other countries are not following this approach.
I
Uh,
don't see that in the document also. Can you refer me to where in the document are you seeing this? I think there's one which says, besides China's approach to regulating video games via arbitrary time and spending
yeah,
limits,
yeah,
is an anomaly in global regulatory practices.
yeah,
No
yeah,
other country follows such a system. It would not be a conducive regulatory model for the Indian video game industry or the Indian consumer's interest.
yeah, that's
Um,
correct.
Correct. So I think the key part to remember is that China's industry is probably regulated it. I mean, in China, a lot of these things are regulated. So I think that's an anomaly, not the normal thing that we've kind of seen in any other country in the world. From our perspective, we think that being like the rest of the world would be okay here versus kind of following anything that China has done.
In this context, I was pointing you to what Tamil Nadu is looking at. Because like from the
Unfortunately, I'm not aware of what Tamil Nadu is kind of regulating. I'm not aware of, like, I've never kind of heard of what Tamil Nadu is trying to do. I'm not aware of it. But like I said, I think that the key part of it is being like rest of the world in terms of regulating it, where people's choice and freedom becomes the important thing, versus having a big brother watch over you in some of these cases might be the way to do it.
right. So a no on time limits is what you were pointing to.
Yeah. I think, like responsible gaming is obviously the norm that everybody follows, and we're part of, research forums where we kind of do it. But I don't think that it's a government regulatory purview item.
Right. Understood. Uh, Another thing that the representation was pointing to was challenges that the video game industry has faced because of misrepresentation of like real money games as video games. Could you
Correct.
discuss some of these challenges, especially some that were faced by SuperGaming?
I'll try and explain it in our context. See, a lot of times when there's a tax proposed or a ban proposed or anything else proposed, obviously, people in India, they or people from the outside looking to invest in India, understanding the market, they panic because it's not a very clear regulated item and it doesn't happen in other countries this way. So a lot of these times I have had to provide very detailed answers of what is the new tax, why is it, who does it affect, what is the difference, what does the government consider the difference, why is it that our business, which is being a video game industry, is not affected by it, or what could be the risks inside of it. Every investor, every kind of partnership that you're signing on would obviously want to evaluate all of these risks before they come to the country. So sometimes these barriers kind of lead to a lot of effort required on our side to explain to investors those items which would have been a lot clearer if the distinction was very clear of video games and if you just say online games, that's not a good enough definition versus saying video games versus real money games.
Right. Another question that I had around what falls within the category of video games was I was looking at Roblox, and they
Hmm.
have their own in-game currency and basically have an entire economy
Economy.
inside the inside Roblox. So users are largely incentivized to create their own games, make money, and so on.
Correct.
So just wanted to understand from the Indian gaming industry's perspective, how in-game currencies fall within the umbrella of what the government is currently regulating as like a cryptocurrency. Because the definition of virtual currencies is a little more free here.
So I'll tell you why I don't kind of agree that you should think of it as a cryptocurrency. a cryptocurrency is a piece of speculation. Like, that's really why I kind of think about it as, I don't know whether I should, whether it's kind of falling into any other purview other than the speculation currency. But a Roblox currency, you can't buy it, hold it, and sell it at a different price later. It's a utility currency. It's an item that people used to trade within the video games. You can't take it outside of it. If inside of a game you're kind of buying it outside, but you're spending it inside of the game, you can't use that Roblox currency anywhere outside. You might be able to cash out if you're a developer, but a developer also, he only cashes out like a very small percentage of that, because a lot of portion is actually owned or taken up by the platform that's providing you the service inside of it. If you kind of see, there's a lot of Roblox developers signed up for it, but there's a very small percentage of developers who actually make money off Roblox. Like a Roblox payout, it's actually to a very small set of developers. So I don't think that it's reached that point of time when you would want to kind of think about anything to do with regulation or pieces inside of it. Critical parts for it is, hey, it's not a speculative currency. You can't trade it. You can't sell it inside and outside. You can't use it anywhere else except inside of Roblox.
Right. Got it. So in terms of the support that the industry, like discuss the types of government support and incentives that are necessary for fostering innovation in the gaming industry.
So I think, a lot of the like government support pieces, etc., inside of it, I think one part of it is just clarity, regulatory clarity, I think is the first and foremost, which I think is kind of the principal function of the letter that we've written. The next part of it is really saying that, hey, the government has, like, I don't think that this is not a one-way street. The government has always kind of talked about an AVGC policy, has been talking about gaming. All that we are kind of asking for is a formalized mechanic, where all of these initiatives can be clearly outlined. People who are not aware of these things can be made aware of these opportunities, especially if you're a young person and seeking government support, and the government is kind of entering all of these opportunities. And you've seen what the government has done in the digital revolution of India, whether it's UPI, whether it's ONDC, whether it's authentication with Aadhaar, all of these pieces. We believe that there's a large opportunity to kind of build on all of this digital infrastructure for gaming as well. And that's kind of the opportunity from a government, both from a incentive system, setting up specific zones to kind of do all of these things. From my perspective, one of the biggest challenges from our perspective has been that we chose gaming because it's also the highest form of software engineering. It's not services, it's an export of a finished item that has a great market everywhere in the world, whether that's on the app stores. Apple and Google allowed me. So like I definitely do think that, from context, I was one of the first iPhone developers in the country back in 2008. So for the last 15 years, it's allowed me to kind of take our talent of writing software and kind of make money with video games all around the world. I think that piece is really what I kind of see as the possibility and the opportunity for multiple other kind of people to have, without kind of undergoing the hassle of just being early on the system. I think that's really the big opportunity, that the government can encourage many more companies like SuperGaming. We were fortunate that we were early, we were supported by investors, but I think that, for a sunrise industry like this, India is one of the largest opportunities in gaming. We have the most young people, we have the people who are always connected, we have great internet, we have digital payments sorted. So there is a very large opportunity for the Indian government to encourage Indian developers to make for these markets, versus having, I would say, companies from the outside come in and dominate these markets.
Got it. Do you think there is any need to regulate gaming in certain sectors? So, for instance, games related to education or healthcare, should they fall within the same frameworks that or policies that the government comes out with for games which are more entertainment focused?
I think what happens in generally, like, a lot of these, like today you can't just publish a game. You can publish a website and you'll not be regulated on it. Similarly, like, I would say that when you're going through the Apple and Google Play stores, there is still a approval mechanic that exists through all of these things. So what we kind of see is that a lot of the bad actors of anything that might be offensive can easily be regulated through these pieces. Anything that's not in line, the government does work with all of the platforms. In my opinion, or in my understanding, I think it's happened before that the government does work with any of these things to see what fits and what doesn't fit in. I think what you're starting to see as an emerging market or an emerging thing is that there's a standardization of around the world of classification. Now whether that's ESRB, all of these like PEGI, all of these are classification layers that will eventually come to the games industry, and maybe we'll actually have our own classification system if we don't adopt one. Today, whenever I make a game in the app stores, I am forced to answer a lot of questions which clearly force my rating from an ESRB or a PEGI rating before my game is kind of played or shown to anybody else. So I do think that that layer of oversight exists. Whether what can you call educational, what you can't call educational, is reviewed and approved from the Apple and Google Play stores as well.
So, just because I'm curious, and you mentioned working with Play stores a lot, would you sort of, and we've seen other companies, like companies outside of the gaming industries, have issues with app stores policies. Could you sort of like give your perspective on what it's like to work in that landscape? Have apps
Sure.
on app stores?
I'll tell you one thing is that my company's story is better known as three guys, a dog, and a dream that found the app store. So I think that's really the answer, that my business, my company would not exist if the app store did not exist. So I've been very fortunate, and I kind of think of this as the greatest innovation, which has kind of allowed us to take software that we built and reach millions or billions of users around the world. Obviously, now when you work with a partner or a publisher or kind of a platform like that, there are a set of rules that one has to follow. I kind of think that none of these are arbitrary. They're in the larger interest of everybody, not just one developer, but every developer around the world. And I'm happy to kind of comply and kind of work with Apple and Google to kind of figure out what those compliances might be needed. Things keep changing over a period of time. Like earlier, it was like, I would say, not as regulated, but today it's maybe better regulated as you have better systems. But there are also more exploits, right? There are, like, I think of like all of these systems as being the equivalent of trust systems. If you download something from an Apple or a Google store, you are implicitly buying the customer's trust when somebody's coming in through it. They believe that it's been approved. They believe that it's been reviewed. They believe that this will not cause them harm. So I think that's really the process that one has to go through. Like I said, I've just been so early in the system that I don't think that there's been a better thing for us invented ever.
Right. Just to set some context, a lot of companies have had issues with the in-app purchase pricing and all of that scenario.
I don't know what's the specific one. I've made more than 25 games so far, and I've never seen any in-app purchase specific related issue ever.
No, so for instance, companies have problems with the charges that are put in place for in-app purchases that happen. So the fees that Google or Apple are charging.
But I would also say that it's part of what you signed up for. No, it's not that they change the policy or it's something new. When you sign up for the App Store and you choose to be a developer, you're aware of all of these policies. You're aware of what Google is going to take, what Apple is going to take. Those policies have been very well defined. So it's obviously up to a developer to choose to be part of that and distribute or not be part of it. That's really the part inside of it. I personally do think that that for me it's been the greatest thing, because hey, my business would not exist without the app stores.
Got it. That's about it. That's all I wanted to mention.
Perfect.
Thank you for joining us. For more information about the gaming industry, you can take a look at our website.